Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. Google Stadia has the potential of being the biggest disruptor the video game market has seen in decades. Unfortunately for the execution part of it, it doesn't necessarily look like it will be successful. And in this video, I'm going to talk about some major shortcomings Google has with the Stadia that need to be addressed immediately, or this thing is going to fall flat on its face. There has been a tremendous amount of skepticism and negativity surrounding the Google Stadia, and I'm in the camp of tentatively interested, but based off of a lot of factors, really feel like they aren't going to be successful with this. Unfortunately for the Google Stadia, I feel like it has a lot of things I would love in my life to be present, but because of the shortcomings that they have, it's just going to be easier to play a game on a console. Now, as far as affordability, this generation, Google Stadia does not stand a chance. And Google knows that going into this. They don't care about the current generation. This is like a trial run to get all their ducks in order when moving forward into the next generation. Getting people to subscribe to the service, be interested in it, and see what it's all about. That is what they're doing right now. But as far as the reason why people should jump on it, honestly, it's just for early adopters in technology. People that don't want to miss the boat, the fear of missing out on what could be the next big thing. It's not right now, but they do have that potential down the road. The next generation of consoles, when the Sony PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Scarlet or Next or whatever it ends up being called from Microsoft, when those get announced and their price points are somewhere between $500 and $800 at launch, then the Google Stadia might seem like a much better proposition to the gamers when they don't have to invest in those consoles to be able to play these next generation AAA titles. That right there is where Google Stadia's full potential lies, taking advantage of the next generation of gaming. Before people decide to make these gigantic purchases, they can go, I don't know, I could spend $500 to $800 or whatever these next-gen consoles are going to cost, or I can just stream it from Google, assuming I have a good enough internet, which I will circle back to later in this video. Assuming all the technicalities line up for the gamer to be able to utilize Stadia to its maximum potential, then yes, that right there is where Google Stadia stands to take a big chunk of the gaming pie. That, unfortunately, is where the good news ends for the Google Stadia, based off of a number of factors that they've had leading up to this point. When they launched Google Stadia and had that Stadia Connect announcing all the information about it and the pricing and some of the games coming out for it, it confused a little bit of the audience. It perplexed people as far as why they selected what games they get, why Destiny 2 is being highlighted so largely when the game's been out for so long. It just didn't hit home like Google had most likely intended it to. And with the details being as limited as they were during that initial announcement, it ultimately left people with a lot more questions than answers after leaving the presentation. And I made a video talking about this, and since that point, it's only gone downhill from there. Google had announced that games will be available for purchase with the base plan of Stadia. You can just buy the games and stream them via Google, but there's a lot more surrounding that that still hasn't been answered. And questions that have been answered haven't been answered very solidly. Like, there's a lot of information that kind of comes across as misinformation because it's so convoluted. Yes, there's a pro founders pack that you can spend like $10 a month or $130 for the year and get the controller and the Google Chrome and all these other things, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's just too complicated for the average layperson right now to be interested in participating. When Google said that the games are going to cost the $60 MSRP or $59.99 USD, it really rubbed people the wrong way. They thought they'd be able to be getting these games at a discount compared to what it costs to own a physical copy of the game on the console this generation, next generation, and going forward. Unfortunately though, no, these games are going to be costing the same across the board. The other issue with that, they're not going to have the quantity of games that Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo have because of the exclusives. And yes, Google is technically making their own games that they didn't announce yet for the Stadia. A lot of people are interested to see what they have to offer there. But as it stands right now, there just aren't enough games to get people interested in making the leap over to the Stadia and committing the $60 per game into playing on that platform. The other issue that people are going to be running into is the megabits per second and download speed and upload speed and how that's all going to work with the internet and if it's going to be fast enough to actually even stream these games. Google talked about this in their initial press conference, how they use this crazy algorithm to be able to organize it. Even if you don't have a super fast internet, they'd be able to bring the game to you without lots of lag and without skipping around, which is great. But unless you have this maximum internet plan that allows you to run games at 1080p, taking up a ton of data, caps are going to be blown through the roof, especially in the US. If this thing is successful, there are going to be new plans that come into play and lots more regulations that I don't think Google had really even thought about going into this. If Google Stadia is super successful for whatever reason, it's going to present a ton more issues down the road that could ultimately be the demise of the platform. And speaking of the demise of the platform, when people are going to be spending $60 on these games that you don't even own, that means that they need to give some reassurances that you will be able to play this game forever. But unfortunately, with digital purchases, as a lot of us are familiar with nowadays, you don't own those games. You are basically just borrowing them for as long as the service exists. And that right there is the biggest issue, the biggest fear for a ton of gamers, especially old school gamers that prefer owning a physical copy of the game, even though it's a license to play that game in physical form. For all intents and purposes, you own that game. It is yours. You can lend it to someone. They can play it. It is a game that within your grasp you will always have and nobody can take it away from you. With digital games, not so much the case. And with Google Stadia, the assurances they provided to gamers when they expressed concerns about this only seem to make the matter worse. Gamers are going to want assurances that their purchase will be around for the long term, that they be able to pick up and play whatever game they drop $60 or more on, if we're including expansion and season passes on these games. They want to make sure that they will have that forever. And if Google Stadia fails, if it ends up folding like, oh, I don't know, Google Plus, which is, even though Google is the biggest company on the planet, they've even gone into endeavors themselves that have folded under the pressure and weren't successful because of a number of missteps. So Google themselves have proved that not everything they do is going to work out and be successful. With that being the case, if they can't provide assurances to people who are spending $60 per game, it's going to end very badly. Right now, Google said they are making another Stadia Connect, which is along the lines of, you know, what Nintendo Direct does, and now Microsoft and Sony are kind of doing that same thing where they just present the information via a webcast, a pre-made video, and talking about what this is going to offer to the end user. And as many people online have already said, it's going down the wrong path already because the initial Stadia Connect confused the hell out of a lot of people. And now on this next one that's coming up on August 19th, they say it's going to be all about the games. Which is concerning because the last one was kind of supposed to talk about the games and it didn't. And right now the marketing for the Google Stadia just kind of feels like it's all over the place, almost like Nintendo with the Wii U. I know Super Metal Dave said the same thing on Twitter, where it's basically people don't know what they're going to be investing in, and because of that, they don't want any part of it. And I totally agree with that. Right now, people don't even understand what Stadia is presenting as a benefit to the end user. And Google has been doing an atrocious job of marketing the Google Stadia thus far. They're not providing any assurances to customers on their purchases. They don't really know what games are going to be on this at launch and when the rest will be available. The pricing plan is extremely convoluted. The two different plans, when they're launching and why, and what they come with, what devices you'll be able to play it on and when. It's just, there's a lot of confusion surrounding this, and people might say, hey, just figure it out and do the work for it. But unfortunately, as it stands right now, there are easier and cheaper options out there. Most people who want to game already own the game systems. That's why I said at the very outset of this video, it's not for this generation. It's for future generations and giving people a reason to invest in Google Stadia games because they don't need to invest a large amount in the next generation consoles. And one of the biggest issues with Google Stadia that not many people are talking about is YouTube. And I know that's kind of ironic to say, seeing as this video is going up on YouTube, but YouTube themselves has such a major disconnect with Google right now. And it's ironic because Google owns YouTube, and YouTube, with their demonetization standards, their harassment, everything they talk about on what the platform's supposed to be about, how it's supposed to be run, what's acceptable and what's not, what's gratuitous violence, and what's okay for people to see. And then we have the parent company, Google Stadia, making this platform that is fully integrated with YouTube, with AAA titles, with mature titles, with gratuitous scenes, with violence, with lots of other mature themed things that are going to be integrated directly with the platform of YouTube. I could only imagine the headaches YouTube content creators are going to face when they try to stream and talk about these games with the demonetization, what's going to be acceptable and what's not. Google needs to go directly to YouTube and tell Susan Wojcicki, or however you say her last name, that she needs to back off, relax the standards, and go back to normal. Get rid of the snowflake situation, get rid of all this, oh my god, I'm worried about bullying, all these other things, because if Google does not do that, there is going to be an internal collapse between the two entities, which is ironic because Google owns YouTube and they can't even talk to each other. That right there is the biggest concern, if for no other reason, that Google owns YouTube and they can't even get their ducks in order internally. How are they supposed to work externally if that's how they communicate together right now? There's a lot of concerns going into the Google Stadia. Will it be successful? Only time will tell. I don't mean to be overly negative with this video, but I just want to put the facts on the table as they stand right now and why it feels like this plane might be going down pretty rapidly. They do have the potential, like I said, with the next generation of consoles, if they get their pricing plans set up, organized, and making sense, and advertise it properly via the avenues of YouTube, integrate it properly, and get all their ducks in a row with how it works with YouTube, and the pricing of games, get some assurances saying that this service will guarantee to be around, or else you get your money back on these games that you fully purchase. They need to give some sort of reassurances to everybody investing in this new technology. I don't care how big Google is. People aren't going to give them their money if they can't trust what they're going to be doing with the platform. Anyways, that's how I feel about the Google Stadia. I will be interested in checking it out. I know Mad Little Pixel said he's going to be sending me his guest pass for his log-on when the Founders Pack comes out. So yes, thank you, Rod. I will definitely be checking that out, and I'm interested to see how this runs. But without the internet situation resolved, without the pricing model resolved, without the YouTube situation resolved, without all these extracurricular things that are going around Google Stadia, and they are just blinders and saying, hey guys, we're moving forward with this, hope you buy it, it's just concerning. And we'll leave it at that. That's all I got for you guys today, but I'd be very interested on your perspective with the Google Stadia, and if you're interested in diving into this, or if you're extremely skeptical about it and why. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing. Smash, smash,
MJ.